I kicked out my roommate when I learned she was taking money from my parents. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. You can't do this to me, Jenna screamed, knuckles white around her suitcase handle. Her voice echoed down the hallway of our apartment, bouncing off the dented front door I was leaning against. My fingers rested on the deadbolt like it was a life support switch. One twist, and our friendship would be over. I'm Roger, 26, barista in the mornings, office assistant in the afternoons, professional bill juggler at night. I moved in with Jenna because splitting rent was the only way I could afford to leave my parents' house without crawling back 2 months later. My parents, Karen and Mark, were proud enough to brag to relatives, but they still sent a little something for rent when things got tight. They believed every dollar was keeping their son above water, not disappearing into someone else's pockets. Jenna's mascara had melted into gray half-moons under her eyes. "Roger, seriously, think about everything I've done for you," she said, voice wobbling. "You're really going to throw me out over some stupid misunderstanding? Over money?" The word made my stomach clench. Behind my anger was a familiar guilt. I remembered nights of cheap noodles on the couch, trashy TV, the way she'd make fun of customers with me. I used to think living with a friend meant we'd be a team against the world. Now I understood I'd been playing on the wrong side without knowing it. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. I didn't need to look to know what it was. The screenshots I'd sent to myself, a folder of betrayal. Payment notifications with my mom's name on them. Messages I definitely hadn't written. Emojis my parents didn't even know how to use. Every line was proof that the person sobbing in the hallway wasn't just messy with money. She'd been siphoning my parents' kindness like it was her personal ATM. "Your mom told me she understands." Jenna pressed on, softening her tone. "She said you're just stressed. She literally told me not to take it personally. Please, Roj, don't throw away our friendship over some numbers on a screen." A few months ago, that probably would have worked on me. I tightened my grip on the bolt, wondering when my roommate became a thief. To explain how we got to screaming in the hallway, I have to rewind a year, back to the night I met Jenna in a cloud of burnt espresso and anxiety. She was a regular at the coffee shop where I worked, always tapping away on her laptop, ordering iced lattes she could barely afford, leaving tips in crumpled singles with glittery nail polish on them. One slow shift, she overheard me telling a coworker I needed a roommate like I needed oxygen. "You looking for someone reliable?" she'd asked, sliding up to the bar, eyes bright. "Because my lease is up next month, and I'm not trying to move back in with my mom." We joked about boomer parents and their passive-aggressive texts. By closing time, she'd sent me a link to the apartment listing, and we were already strategizing about who'd get which bedroom. My parents were nervous but supportive. "Just make sure everyone's name is on the lease," Dad said, reading the contract like it was a hostage note. Mom baked Jenna a banana bread the first time she came over to meet them, fussing over whether she liked walnuts. Jenna charmed them effortlessly, talking about her marketing gig and freelance clients in a way that sounded stable enough. They offered to help with the security deposit. "Think of it as an early Christmas gift," Mom insisted when I protested. "We're just happy you're doing this." After that, whenever my hours got cut or my car decided to make a new rattle, Mom would text, "Need help with rent this month? Dad and I can spot you a little." I always felt guilty, but rent doesn't care about pride. Jenna would hear the vibration from across the room and grin. "Your parents are so sweet," she'd say. Mine would just send a thumbs-up emoji and ignore my calls. She made it sound like my parents helping me was normal, harmless, even a little cute. At the time, I didn't realize she was listening more closely than I was. The first insult came months later, slipped into a joke like a knife hidden in frosting. Jenna laughed at my job, asking if my parents tipped me to survive. It happened over takeout one Thursday, cartons of lo mein sweating on the coffee table between us. I was scrolling through my banking app, doing the mental math of which bill could wait another week, when I noticed the rent had hit my account harder than usual. It wasn't much, just $50 more than I remembered agreeing to send Jenna for her half of the utilities. I chalked it up to my own tired brain. "Rent cleared?" Jenna asked, eyes on the TV, hand fishing blindly in the bag for an egg roll. "Yeah," I muttered. "Little higher this month, I guess." She hummed. "Yeah, the landlord said something about building fees or whatever. I handled it, don't worry." Her tone was casual, bored, The way you talk about weather or a coworker you barely know. I let it go because I wanted to. A week later, Jenna walked in carrying a pair of brand new sneakers, the kind I only ever saw people wear on Instagram. Got them on sale, she said when she caught me looking. I deserve something nice once in a while, right? She laughed it off, but I couldn't help noticing the stack of unopened bills on the kitchen counter with her name on them, edges curling like they were trying to escape. The real crack appeared in a phone call with my mom. I was doing dishes, phone wedged between my shoulder and ear, warm water turning my fingers pruny. The apartment smelled like old takeout and lemon soap, familiar and safe until she spoke. So, did the extra $200 help this month? Mom asked cheerfully. I froze, soap suds dripping from my hands. What extra $200? The money I transferred last week for rent, she said. Jenna said things were really tight for you, and your hours got cut again, so we wanted to make sure you weren't stressing. I stared at the calendar on the fridge, replaying the last week. My hours were fine. I hadn't asked for money. I hadn't told Jenna anything about needing help. My chest tightened as those facts lined up one by one. A dull throb started behind my eyes as another thought crept in. If Mom sent money and I never saw it, where exactly had it gone? I told myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe Mom clicked the wrong account. Maybe the transfer bounced. Maybe I was missing a notification. Those maybes rattled around my skull like loose coins for 2 days, until curiosity and dread teamed up and shoved my thumb onto my banking app again. There was no extra deposit. No $200. No glitch. That night, I waited until Jenna was sprawled on the couch watching reality TV, a mountain of laundry colonizing the other cushion. I sat on the edge of the coffee table, blocking her view. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual. Did my mom send you anything for rent? Jenna blinked, then grabbed the remote and paused the show. What? No. Why would she send it to me? Her voice was flat, but one of her feet started bouncing, heel tapping the floor hard enough to shake the remote. She said she transferred $200 last week. I replied. Said you told her my hours got cut. Jenna scoffed. Seriously? Your mom must be confused. She's always worried, right? Maybe she mixed up months. Or maybe your bank app is lagging. She leaned back, folding her arms. Roger, you know I'd tell you if she sent me anything. The thing about being a lifelong people pleaser is that your first instinct is to assume you're the one who's wrong. I felt my face heat. Yeah, maybe I'm mixing things up, I said. It's been a long week. Exactly. Her shoulders relaxed. Look, if your parents want to help, that's sweet. But don't drag me into some confused money drama. I have enough of my own. I laughed weakly, trying to diffuse the tension and change the subject to the show. But the air felt heavier, like the apartment itself knew something I didn't. That night in bed, I replayed every second of her expression, every deflection, every way she nudged the blame toward my confused mother. The next time a bill came up short, she rolled her eyes and sighed dramatically. Don't freak out, Roger. I'll message your mom and let her know it's tight again. She loves helping. It makes her feel needed. She said it like she was doing my parents a favor by lying to them. My gut twisted, but my mouth stayed shut. I didn't realize that silence was exactly the weakness she was counting on. The real fight with my parents started over a pile of junk mail and a phone call I almost didn't answer. I was on my lunch break at the office, picking through sad break room muffins, when my dad's name flashed on my screen. He doesn't usually call in the middle of the day. He's more of a text your mother back kind of guy. Hey, Dad, I said, juggling my phone between my ear and shoulder as I opened a credit card offer addressed to Jenna. Everything okay? There was a pause, the rustling sound of paperwork. Roger, are you behind on rent again? His voice wasn't angry, just tired. My stomach dropped. No, I'm good this month. Why? Because your mother and I have sent a lot recently, he said slowly. Another $300 last week. Before that, $200. Before that, honestly, I've lost track. Your mom keeps saying Jenna messages when things are urgent. He put air quotes around the word without needing to. I stopped breathing. Wait, you've been sending money that often? Dad sighed. Look, we're happy to help when you need it. But when I asked why you didn't call us yourself, Jenna said you were embarrassed. She said you'd probably get mad at us for bringing it up. Heat flooded my face, even though no one in the break room was paying attention to me. I never said that, I blurted. I didn't even know you sent anything last week. Or the week before. On the other end, Dad went quiet, and that scared me more than if he'd yelled. "Roger," he said finally, "are you sure you know what's going on with your finances over there?" Shame tried to shove the words back down my throat. Admitting I didn't know meant admitting I'd let someone else take control of my life. It meant maybe my parents weren't just being generous, they were being played. I stared at the fluorescent-lit break room, suddenly feeling like a kid again, caught in a lie I didn't tell. "I thought I did," I said, voice thin. "Maybe I don't." For the first time, I wondered if my parents trusted her over me. That night, I drove straight to my parents' house instead of going home. Their subdivision was quiet in the way only older neighborhoods are. Same trucks and driveways, same porch lights, same little flags stuck in flower beds. Mom opened the door before I even knocked, like she'd been pacing behind it. "Roger, you should have told me you were coming," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like laundry detergent and overcooked pasta. "I would have made something nicer for dinner." "I'm not here for dinner," I said, then winced at how harsh it sounded. "Sorry, I need to clear something up." At the kitchen table, with its forever sticky spot from a spilled soda 10 years ago, we went through her phone together. I watched her open her banking app, watched her scroll through transfers labeled rent help and for utilities and just in case. Every other entry had my name in the memo line, except it wasn't my name. Not exactly. "Why does it say for Roj? He's too proud to ask," I asked, pointing at one note. Mom squinted. "That's what Jenna typed when she messaged me on Facebook. She said you were stressing and didn't want to worry us, so she offered to pass it along. I thought it was sweet that she was looking out for you." My throat went dry. "Can I see the messages?" She scrolled to their chat. I stared as Jenna's words filled the screen. Long paragraphs about how I was barely coping, about sudden car repairs I hadn't had, about imaginary overdraft fees she described in painful detail. She used my insecurities like bullet points. The worst part was how she sprinkled in little jokes and heart emojis, as if that softened the manipulation. "Mom, I didn't write any of this," I said. "I didn't even know you two talked this much." Mom's smile faltered, eyes flicking across the messages again, slower this time. Her shoulders sagged as realization started to edge in, like a draft under a door. Before she could speak, a new message from Jenna flashed across Mom's screen. Mom opened the notification automatically, more out of habit than anything. Jenna's name sat at the top of the screen, next to a selfie of her with a dog-ear filter. The message was a long block of text, but the first line burned into my brain. "Hey Karen, I hate to bug you again, but Roger is freaking out about rent." I watched my own mother's face fall in real time. "She's lying," I said, the words coming out sharper than I intended. "I'm not freaking out about rent. I haven't even talked to her today." Mom looked between me and her phone, confusion wrinkling her forehead. "But she sent me a screenshot," she murmured, scrolling up. "She said these were your messages." She tapped, and there it was, a blurry screenshot of a text thread with my name at the top, complaining about late fees and saying I was too ashamed to ask them for more help. The font wasn't even the same as my messaging app. The timestamp didn't match when I'd been at work. It was fake in the way a photocopied dollar bill is fake. You only notice if you're looking closely. "Mom, that's not my phone," I said. "Look at the time. I was on shift then. Check with Dad, he dropped me off." To her credit, she didn't argue. She pulled out her reading glasses like armor, squinting at the screen, then at me. "Why would she?" she started, then trailed off, color draining from her cheeks. Dad came in from the garage wiping his hands on a rag, and within 5 minutes we were all leaning over the table, phones out, piecing together a timeline like amateur detectives. Transfers, dates, Jenna's messages, my work schedule, even my pay stubs. The more we lined up, the uglier it looked. "She's been contacting us at least once a month," Dad said, jaw tight. "Sometimes more. Always when we get paid." He tapped at a cluster of transfers. "Right here. And you never saw this?" I shook my head, feeling stupid and small. Anger and humiliation tangled in my chest, hot and unfamiliar. For the first time, suspicion hardened into a stubborn, unfamiliar determination inside me. Over the next week, my life turned into a spreadsheet. I printed bank statements from my parents' account and my own, highlighting every transfer with my name in the memo. I dug through my email for rent receipts, pulled up our lease, even asked my manager to confirm my old schedules so I could match them to Jenna's sob stories. I dragged my friend Sam into it over iced coffee after work. He was the kind of guy who liked puzzles and privacy settings, which turned out to be exactly what I needed. "So she's pretending to be you to your parents," he said, scrolling through screenshots on my phone. "And they just send money directly to her?" "Not just once," I sighed. "Over a year. Dozens of times." Sam whistled low. "That's not messy. That's planned. She's building a whole narrative." We opened my payment apps together, flipping through old transactions. There were the usual splits for groceries and internet, but sprinkled in were weird requests from Jenna. 20 here, 40 there, always captioned with things like, "your half," or "electric." When I cross-checked them with actual bills, half of them didn't match any due date. Sometimes she'd charge me twice for the same thing, just weeks apart. Then Sam's finger froze on one transfer. "Dude, look at this." It was a payment from my mom's account straight to Jenna's username on a different app one barely used. Memo: for Roger's overdue rent, please don't tell him we helped again. The date matched the week I'd been bragging to Jenna that I'd finally caught up on everything. "She told Mom I was behind," I said slowly, "when I wasn't. She made me sound like I was one paycheck away from homelessness." Sam looked up, eyebrows knitting together. "Roger, this isn't just borrowing. This looks like a system. She's using your parents as backup income." I added up every suspicious transfer, every invented crisis, every emergency she'd described in sickening detail. The final total made my stomach flip like I'd swallowed wet concrete. The number staring back at me from my notes app might as well have been written in blood. Over $3,000 in a year. $3,000 my parents could have used for their own bills, for car repairs, for something other than subsidizing Jenna's online shopping cart, and whatever else she'd decided she deserved. "I have to do something," I said, voice hollow. "I can't just let this slide." Sam stirred the melting ice in his cup. "You need proof they can't argue with. Screenshots, bank records, timestamps. And you need to assume she'll lie when confronted." He gave me a look. "You also need to stop worrying about hurting her feelings." That night, back at the apartment, I started my own quiet investigation. I screenshotted every message between Jenna and my parents that Mom forwarded me. I exported my transaction history. I took photos of the overdue bills with Jenna's name on them, still stacked on the counter like they were part of the decor. I even recorded a screen video of me scrolling through the fake rogue messages she'd sent my mom, narrating the real times I'd been at work. The more evidence I gathered, the less I recognized the person I was documenting. This wasn't just my messy, occasionally selfish roommate. This was someone who used my parents' love like a lever, prying money loose whenever she felt like it, who thought family was just a word you paste on top of exploitation. The moral dilemma hit me hardest when Mom called again. "Honey, Jenna said things are tense," she said gently. "We don't want money to come between you two. She told me she'd pay us back once things calmed down." I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. "Mom, she's not paying you back," I said. "She hasn't even paid our water bill." Silence stretched between us, heavy and scratchy in my ear. I could almost hear the moment Mom's trust cracked. In that quiet, I understood there was no version where everyone stayed comfortable. If I wanted it to stop, I'd have to rip her mask off publicly. Once I decided I was done being passive, the apartment felt different. Every time Jenna laughed in the kitchen or hummed in the shower, it grated. I couldn't unsee the fake sob stories she'd fed my parents. Still, I knew barging in with accusations and rage would only give her more room to twist things. So I played it cool. For a few days, I answered her small talk with bland nods. I locked my bedroom door more often. I stopped leaving my wallet on the coffee table. Jenna noticed. She always noticed when attention shifted away from her. "You're weird lately," she said one night as we folded laundry. "Did your parents say something? Your mom seemed off on the phone earlier." My heart thudded. "We just talked about budgeting," I said carefully. "They're worried I rely on them too much." Jenna's eyes narrowed for half a second before she pasted on a sympathetic expression. "Ah, classic Karen," she said lightly. "She just wants to feel in control. You know how parents are." Later that week, I came home early from work and caught her in the middle of what looked way too much like snooping. My laptop was open on the table, and Jenna jerked back from it so fast the chair squeaked. "I was just moving it so I could wipe the table," she said immediately, even though there wasn't a sponge in sight. My skin prickled. "Don't touch my stuff," I said, more sharply than I'd intended. Her face crumpled. Wow. Okay. Sorry I tried to be helpful. Ever since your parents started acting weird, you've been taking everything out on me. The guilt reflex kicked in so hard my spine actually tingled. For a second, I saw the version of events she wanted. Me, paranoid and ungrateful. Her, the misunderstood friend caught in the crossfire. That familiar urge to apologize rose in my throat like acid. My mouth even started to shape the word sorry. I hated how automatic it still was. Maybe I am being harsh. I started, words tasting like ash. Then my phone buzzed with an email that destroyed my last remaining doubts. The email was from our landlord, subject line, urgent, notice of past due balance. My stomach plunged as I opened it right there in the hallway. Jenna still staring at me like I was the villain in her story. Everything okay? She asked, voice suddenly light, almost chipper. I ignored her and read. According to the message, we were 2 months behind on rent. Not just late, behind. The landlord attached a ledger showing partial payments, odd amounts, and a note that, per conversation with Jenna, the rest would be coming from my parents, as usual. Jenna stepped closer, trying to peek at my screen. I angled it away. Roger, what's going on? She pressed. You're freaking me out. Don't, I said, my voice low. Don't act like you don't know. She flinched, then straightened. Wow, dramatic much? If something's wrong with the rent, it's because your parents are dragging their feet. I've been the one handling everything with the landlord. There it was, the confident flip of blame I'd been expecting. Instead of arguing right then, I took a slow breath and walked past her into my room, shutting the door. She yelled my name through the wood, fists pounding once, twice, like she could scare the conversation away. I didn't answer. I forwarded the landlord's email to myself and to my parents, then texted Sam. Tomorrow night. I'm confronting her. Need you on standby. My hands shook as I typed, but there was a steadiness underneath the fear now, like my spine had finally decided to show up. The next day, I called my parents and laid everything out. The fake messages, the transfers, the landlord's note. Mom cried quietly. Dad didn't say much at all, just listened and then asked for copies of everything. Even over the phone, I could hear the betrayal in his silence. We're going to be on speaker, he said finally. She doesn't get to twist our words again. That evening, I set my phone in the middle of the coffee table, speaker already on, Sam waiting for my text in the hallway. I told Jenna we needed to talk, and she walked in smiling, utterly certain she'd win. Jenna plopped onto the couch like this was a casual roommate chat about chores. So, she said, tucking one leg under her. What's with the serious vibe? You look like you're about to fire me. In a way, I am, I replied. My own voice surprised me, steady, almost calm. First, say hi to my parents. Her smile faltered as she noticed the phone on the table. Hi, Karen. Hi, Mark, she said, waving at the rectangle like it was a camera. Everything okay? Dad's voice came through, low and controlled. That depends on how honest you're prepared to be. I opened my laptop and mirrored the screen to our cheap TV using an HDMI cable I'd borrowed from the office. The first thing that appeared was a spreadsheet, dates, amounts, memo lines. Then I clicked through screenshots, Jenna's Facebook messages to my mom, the fake text thread, the payment app transfers. Roger, what is this? Jenna demanded, but there was a tremor in her voice now. This, I said, pointing to the screen, is every time you asked my parents for money using my name. Every made-up emergency. Every he's too proud to ask. Every time you promised you'd pass it along and didn't. Mom sniffled through the speaker. You told me he was having panic attacks, she said softly. You said he wasn't eating. Jenna swallowed hard. Karen, I was just trying to help him, she said quickly. He was embarrassed. You know how he is. I fronted rent when he couldn't, and I thought. No, I cut in. You never paid the landlord the full amount. He sent us the ledger. Half the time you paid late, and the rest you just didn't. I clicked to the landlord's email, then to the forged screenshot. I zoomed in so the mismatched fonts and timestamps were impossible to ignore. Sam texted me a thumbs up from the hallway. The Wi-Fi camera he'd set up earlier blinked silently on the bookshelf, recording everything. Jenna's face cycled through denial, anger, and something like calculation, eyes darting between the TV and my phone. When she finally spoke, her words were aimed straight at my deepest insecurities. You seriously believe I did all this to hurt you? Jenna snapped, tears springing to her eyes on cue. Roger, You're impossible to help. Your parents baby you, and I'm the only one who actually deals with the fallout. I covered so many things for you. But sure, let's pretend I'm some evil mastermind." Dad's voice cut through her performance. "We don't baby him," he said. "We trusted you. That was our mistake." Jenna's composure cracked. "You said you didn't want him to move back home," she burst out. "You said you couldn't afford another adult living with you. I was keeping him independent for you. For all of us." Mom gasped. "I never said that," she whispered. "I said we were proud of him. That's not the same thing." The room felt like it had tilted. Suddenly, the web snapped into view. Jenna taking my insecurities, my parents' fears, and weaving them into a story where she was the selfless hero. "I want you out," I said quietly. She turned to me like I'd slapped her. "Excuse me. I want you out," I repeated louder this time. "You lied to my parents. You stole from them. You let us fall behind on rent while you bought shoes and takeout, and God knows what else. We're done." "You can't just kick me out," she said, voice rising. "My name is on the lease too. Where exactly am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem anymore," I replied. "You have 30 days. I've already talked to the landlord. He's getting all of this." I gestured at the screen, the emails, the camera light blinking in the corner. Sam knocked once and stepped in, as if on cue. "Everything's recorded," he said evenly. "So if you're thinking about spinning this into some sob story online, maybe don't." For a moment, Jenna just stared at the two of us like she didn't recognize us. Then she grabbed her phone, muttered something I'm glad the camera didn't catch, and stormed toward her room, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled. I sank onto the couch, adrenaline draining, not yet understanding the digital storm she was about to unleash. I had no idea our private disaster was about to go painfully public. It started with a notification from a mutual friend. "Dude, what happened?" Then another. Then a link to Jenna's Instagram story, where she'd posted a crying selfie and a long paragraph about being betrayed by someone you tried to save. She never used my name, but she didn't have to. Half our friend group knew we lived together. "She's saying you stole from your parents and blamed her," Sam said, scrolling through her posts while we sat in my now quiet living room. "And that you're kicking her out because you can't handle adult responsibilities." My phone buzzed nonstop for a day. Some friends asked for my side. Others clearly believed her version without question. One even sent, "You know rent is hard. Man, you didn't have to ruin her life." I forwarded the worst messages to a folder and muted the rest. The Wi-Fi camera footage and the documents went to the landlord, who emailed back a short, clipped response. "Thank you for informing us. Ms. Collins will be removed from our preferred tenant list." I didn't know that could feel satisfying, but it did. 30 days crawled by and flew at the same time. Jenna moved her stuff out in loud, angry bursts, slamming cabinets and accidentally leaving trash behind. I changed the Wi-Fi password protected my laptop, and installed a lock on my bedroom door even after she was gone, just because the feeling of being watched lingered. My parents came over one weekend with groceries and a folding card table. We sat in the middle of the half-empty living room and went through a simple agreement we'd printed out. If they helped with money again, it would go directly to the landlord or the utility company, never through another person. We all signed it. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner," Mom said, eyes shiny but steady. "I thought I was helping." "I'm sorry I let it go on so long," I replied. "I didn't want you to think I couldn't handle my life." Dad squeezed my shoulder, a rare, wordless gesture of approval. For the first time in months, it felt like we were really a team again. The apartment felt bigger without Jenna's chaos spilling into every corner. For weeks, I'd still catch myself listening for her keys in the lock, her heavy footsteps in the hallway. Instead, there was just the hum of the fridge, the occasional car outside, and the soft buzz of my own thoughts finally getting loud enough to hear. I didn't rush to find a new roommate. I picked up extra shifts, cut back on takeout, and learned how to exist without someone else's drama filling the silence. Some nights were lonely, sure, but lonely is different from unsafe. Lonely doesn't pretend to be you to your parents and drain their bank account. Over coffee at my parents' house one Sunday, Dad slid an envelope across the table. "We talked to the bank," he said. "We can't get everything back, but we did flag the fraudulent transfers. They're looking into it." He hesitated. "We're not pressing charges yet. We wanted your opinion." For a moment, I pictured Jenna crying on Instagram, spinning a new story about how we'd ruined her life. Then I pictured my mom checking her balance 3 times before buying groceries, my dad picking up extra shifts because he thought his grown son was drowning. If she does this again to someone else and we stayed quiet, I said slowly, I don't want that on us. Mom nodded, eyes sad but resolute. Then we won't stay quiet, she said. Not anymore. In the end, the bank flagged Jenna's account, the landlord warned other tenants, and some of our mutual friends saw enough proof to quietly unfollow her. I kept my receipts, both digital and emotional, and started therapy through a low-cost clinic my coworker recommended. We talked about boundaries, about people-pleasing, about the difference between being kind and being a doormat. If you're listening to this and something in your gut is twisting, pay attention to it. Write things down. Ask questions you're scared to ask. Protect the people who'd empty their wallets for you without thinking. That night, I realized trusting myself was the first debt I finally cleared.